Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you, everybody. It's really a privilege to have you here today. And people from, all over the world, like not just sort of, kind of all over the world, like really, actually all over the world. So it's a real pleasure. I'm actually here with my son, Xander. I brought him on this trip. We took a day off yesterday, and we did a little sightseeing. Tomorrow I'm doing a private training, and the next day and a meeting with some investors today. So, and then we were able to wedge in this little breakfast here. So I really appreciate you. You all took time away from maybe family or projects or whatever. So I really appreciate you being here. This is going to be a very valuable session for you because I'm going to talk about 80-20, and 80-20 is really, I think it's the most powerful principle in business. And, I really like principles. Now, in internet marketing, there's a million little buttons you can push, or tweaks you can do, or tricks you can implement that will get you a result. And most of them stop working 3 months later. How many of you have experienced that, okay? The more experienced that I have become as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a consultant and advisor, in some cases, even advising billionaires, the less interested I am in the tweaky little technique, quick fix Band-Aid kind of thing, and the more interested I am in, is this going to last like 10 years? How about 100? Or maybe 1,000? What if you do something that actually lasts 1,000 years, or you build your business on something that's still going to be true in 1,000 years? What are the chances that you're going to still be here next year? Okay? And if I could say anything to a bunch of internet marketers, it would be pursue things that have staying power. Pursue things that are rooted in deep principles instead of just kind of getting sloshed around with like whatever the latest little fad is. And in fact, if you understand this, you'll have a much greater ability to identify the part of a fad or the part of a trend that's really actually important, that's really speaking to a real human need versus the thing that's just gonna go away, okay? And so I think this is the principle of marketing and business. The reason that I wrote this book, 80-20 Sales and Marketing, was because, first of all, it was the book that I wish I'd had 20 years ago when I started out in sales. The way I got into sales was the first thing was, while I was in engineering school, my friend recruited me into Amway. And I had just gotten fired from 3 jobs in a row, and my illusion of security had been shaken a little bit. Anybody ever had a little experience like that? And so I got into Amway, and I learned how to like put on a suit and give presentations and make phone calls and stuff like that. A lot of you have done things like that. But I got a job as an engineer, and I'm working as an acoustical engineer, and I get laid off. And my wife is 3 months pregnant, and I don't want to move from Chicago to some other place, and I end up having to go into sales. And I thought, well, this shouldn't be too hard. Those guys don't seem all that smart. Well, I was in for a rude awakening. Oh, yes, I was. A couple years of bologna sandwiches and ramen soup have this really effective way of teaching you stuff. And I really did struggle, and we went into a lot of debt, and I really wanted my wife to be a stay-at-home mom, and we got a little baby at home, and the credit card debt is spiraling upwards, and we're trying to manage all this chaos. And I did eventually figure stuff out. Well, this is the book I wish I had had then. 80-20 is the simplest way to get to the real answer of what you ought to really be doing. I believe 80-20 is the most direct way to explain everything that actually works in sales. So here's what 80-20 says. 80-20 says 80% of your results come from 20% of what you do. It also says that 20% of your results come from 80% of what you do. But there's more, okay? Now, first of all, sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes it's 90-10. Sometimes it's 95-5. A little later in this presentation, I am actually going to explain why most things on the internet are more like 90-10 or 95-5, not 80-20. And that's a big deal. Secondly, there's an 80-20 inside of every 80-20. Okay? So the 20% of what you do that generates 80% of your results, well, guess what? 20% of that generates 80% of that. So that means 4% of what you do generates 64% of what you get. But it's true again. 1% of what you do generates about 50% of what you get. So there's huge levers. There's tiny little levers in your life that generate huge results. Last year, half your income, just about everybody here, last year, half your income came from 3 days of work that you did. Now, if you're self-employed, or if you're in sales, or if you're on commission, it may be fairly obvious. Oh yeah, that huge deal, it actually took me a day and a half to actually, the part that we actually put together that actually worked, yeah, it was like a day and a half. And the rest of the year was like sawdust. It was like filler, right? Well, I'm going to tell you a story. So, my friend John Paul Mendoza dropped out of high school, age 17. He lived in Denver. He hitchhiked to Las Vegas, and he decided to become a professional gambler. He had a stack of gambling books. He'd read them. He'd learned all these gambling tricks. And he's like, I'm going to be a poker player. I'm going to play blackjack. I'm going to make a living doing this. Literally 17 years old, he goes to Vegas, and he's playing poker and blackjack for a living. Okay? Well, it's a little harder than he thought it was going to be. It was kind of like me going into sales, right? It shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, that's kind of tricky. Well, he meets this guy, and this guy runs a professional gambling ring. And it's like, hey, could you teach me how to do this? He's, well, for a percentage of your winnings, yeah, I could teach you how to do this. And so they shake on it. And as soon as they have a deal, jump in the Jeep, John, we're going for a ride. So they get in a Jeep and they're driving down the road. And John says, okay, how do I win more poker games? And he goes, the way you win more poker games is you have to find people who are going to lose. And those people are called marks. And you want to play with the marks. You don't want to play with professional gamblers. You want to play with a guy from Wichita, Kansas that just inherited money from his grandmother and he's coming to Vegas to get rich. That's the guy you want to play. And he goes, well, how do I find marks? And he goes, I'll show you. And they pull into a parking lot and they go into a strip club. Yeah. So they walk in there and there's pounding rock music and there's women with not very much clothes on and there's all this stuff going on, and they sit down, and his friend Rob, he pulls a sawed-off shotgun out of his jacket, because he always carries one, because when you're in that business, that's what you do. Holds it under the table, opens it up, and goes, shh. Makes that sound. It's called racking the shotgun. And these people turn around what was that? And the owner comes up and he goes, everything okay over here, boys? Everything's just fine. Don't worry about us, just teaching the lad a lesson. He says to John, did you see those biker dudes that turned around when I made that noise? He goes, yeah. And he goes, they're not marks. Don't play poker with them. Play poker with everybody else. And that was John's first lesson in 80-20. Everything you do in marketing is racking the shotgun. Okay, so you put up a Google ad. Some people search for it. Some people don't even search. That's racking the shotgun. Some people click on the ad. Other people don't. That's racking the shotgun. Some people come to your page and they sign up for something, or they like your page or whatever. That's racking the shotgun. Some people open the email. Some people don't. Rack the shotgun. Some people click on the link. Other people don't. Rack the shotgun. Some people get on the webinar. Some people don't. Rack the shotgun. Some people add the thing to the cart. Some people don't. Rack the shotgun. Some people check out and actually buy it. Some people don't. Rack the shotgun. Some people buy the second thing after you sold them the first thing. Rack the shotgun. Rack the shotgun. Rack the shotgun. Rack the shotgun. And your job is to pay attention and not live in the should-be world, but live in the is world. Yeah, I know everybody should be interested in what you're doing, but not everybody else, not everybody is, right? Actually, 20% of them are a little interested, and 20% of the 20% are a lot interested. And 20% of the 20% of the 20% are actually interested enough to spend some money. And 20% of those are actually going to go somewhere with it. Do you see the pattern? And this is like the most universal thing. It is everywhere. And in fact, I want to do an experiment. So everybody who owns shoes, stand up. If you own shoes, stand up. All right, so here's what we're going to do. If you own less than 5 pairs of shoes, sit down. Less than 5, sit down. Okay. All right. Less than 10, sit down. Okay. Now, I know by the way, there's no shame in this. Somebody's going to have a lot of shoes. It's okay. It's the point. Okay? Less than 10, sit down. Okay? Less than 20, sit down. Okay? You got it. All right? Okay, less than 40, sit down. Stay, please. It's okay, please. No, don't do this. It's okay. I am honoring people who have shoes today, okay? So, less than 40, okay. Less than 80, sit down. Yes, good. Okay. All right. 160. 160. Okay. Give me a guess how many shoes you probably got. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, can I please have? 200. Okay, 200. Good. Give her a hand. Now, based on what we just did, would you agree that 20% of the people own 80% of the shoes? And 20% of the 20% own 80% of the 80%, right? Now, let's do another one. Everybody stand up, okay? Now, I want you to stay standing if you own any real estate at all of any kind, okay? Otherwise, sit down. Okay, that's great. Now, here's the criteria. A unit of real estate for today is going to be you own a house or an apartment. By the way, managing real estate is actually good enough too. Like, let's say that you're a hotel manager and you don't own the hotel, but you manage, so that counts. And it could also be hotel rooms. Okay, so have a house or an apartment or hotel rooms. So if you control or manage 5 houses, apartments, or hotel rooms stay standing. 5 or more. Okay? All right? 10 or more. 20 or more. 40 or more. Units of anything. Hotels, apartments, retail spaces. Like, what? Give me some.
50-unit apartment building, is that?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now this is not a real estate crowd. This is an internet marketing crowd. Oh, you?
565-room hotel.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. Okay. So you got 50 and you got 500. Now, do you see this again? Like, 2 guys have half the real estate in the whole room or more. Okay. Great. So give these guys a hand. Everything is like this, okay? We could be talking about handbags. We could be talking about, let's do it one more time. Domain names. Stand up. Stand up. Okay, internet marketing crowd. Yeah. Okay, 10 domain names or less. Sit down. 10. Okay. 20. 40. 80. 80, 160. Okay, 120. All right, great. Good. Now, did you notice every time I did that, I kept doubling the number? Now, you will find that when you double the number, like if I had 1,000 people in the room, every time I double the number, half would sit down. That's the way the world works. What that means is everything is exponential. Everything is exponential. How much money people will spend on shoes is exponential. If you want to sell, so do you agree, like, there's probably people within a mile of here that don't even have any shoes. Now, they should buy shoes, but if you want to sell some shoes, who do you sell them to? This table over here. Everything is completely unequal. It's completely counterintuitive. Now, when you go to school, school trains you to be a good citizen and be a good member of a tribe and make everything equal and spread everything out equally, okay? But if you're an entrepreneur, that thinking will kill you, okay? If you're an entrepreneur, your job is to figure out who's going to buy the shoes. Them. Do you advertise to everybody? No, you advertise to them. You could spend $300 advertising to everybody or $3 advertising to them. And you could sell 30 shoes to everybody, you could sell 300 shoes to them. So do you want to spend $300 and sell 3 shoes, or do you want to spend $3 and sell 300 shoes? That's 80-20. That's 80-20. And it's everywhere. Years ago, I read a book called The 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch, and on page 14, he made this throwaway comment, and he set my mind on fire, and I realized that the same principle that causes avalanches and hurricanes and tornadoes and sand dunes and earthquakes causes 80-20. It's the same thing. It's tremendous inequality. Okay, if you go to the right mountain on the right day and clap your hands, 100 tons of snow will go tumbling down the mountain. It's a tipping point. That's 80-20. It's the same thing. And it's been true for how long? Like 13 billion years, like however old the universe is. It's going to be true 13 billion years from now. So if you want to build your business on something that's going to last, build it on the 80-20 principle. And it goes deep. It's like martial arts. So like there's one level of martial arts when you're a yellow belt. There's another yellow martial arts when you're a brown belt or a black belt or a ninth degree black belt. And what the ninth degree black belt does is they get better and better and better at fewer and fewer things. And it's less exhausting. Anybody ever feel exhausted? Okay, so now, when I read Richard's book, I realized, hey, wait a minute. 80-20 isn't like Group A and Group B. It's actually like a curve. And the curve, in fact, I spent 3 years trying to figure this out. I finally figured out. And the curve looks like that. If you put 80-20 on a graph, it looks like that. So this is the 80% that generates relatively little. This is the 20%. And then you have the 20% of the 20% and the 20% of the 20% of the 20%. And you go super high up. Now, let me show you something. Let's say I read in the newspaper that Southwest Airlines has $15 billion of sales, and they're number 160 in the Fortune 500. Well, I can put a little yellow mark right here, and this curve will tell me the size of all the other Fortune 500 companies. Take a look. So the white is the theory of 80-20, and the yellow is the actual size of the companies in the Fortune 500. Okay? I can predict the size of every other company in the Fortune 500 just by knowing the size of one. Let me ask you a question. Could this be useful in setting prices? Could this be useful if your store sells $20,000 diamond rings every week? Could this tell you how many 100,000 diamond rings you're going to sell in a week or a month or a year? You'll actually find it scary accurate. It tells you exactly how much demand is at those higher levels. Somebody was here from, is it a Lamborghini or a Ferrari dealership? I'm sorry? Ferrari, okay? You can predict how many Ferraris are going to sell based on how many Chevys. You can. And it's extremely accurate. This is the Forbes 400 versus a 70-30 graph. Okay? Population of cities in the United States. The yellow versus the black. The yellow is the reality, the white is the theory. Okay? Now, here's another example. The music industry. Here's the top albums of 2012, and you got this list. So what I did was I said, I went to Spotify, because they have like how many times has this song been played, right? I went to Spotify and I said, all right, number of plays of individual songs on Adele's album 21. So the less popular songs and the hit songs, there's the curve. Number of plays for track 5 on all of those albums follows the curve. Number of plays for each individual song across all the albums. There it is. Lifetime customer value of a recent client. This guy sells cell phones, and he graphed all the purchases that he had over a year or two, and here they are. Donations to a church on one particular Sunday morning. There's the graph. Dairy output of Wisconsin counties. See that? This is everywhere. This has been all around you all your life, and that's the curve that tells you what it is. It could be sponsorship money for gold medal winners in the most recent Olympics, and it would follow that curve. And you go, oh, like yesterday, we were on the out in the water in a little boat, and the guy's giving us the tour. He goes, oh yeah, that's David Beckham's house. Oh yeah, all right. So this is income of soccer players. And he's like at the top. And you can predict all the rest of them just from that. See how powerful this is? This is really powerful stuff. You get a black belt in this, you can handle anything. Almost any column on any spreadsheet, in any AdWords campaign, Facebook traffic campaign, traffic to your web pages, profit and loss statements, customers, returns, defects, length of phone calls, number of emails somebody sent you, number of complaints, it's all here. That means there's huge leverage because, guess what? 1% of the people or the customers or the product defects produce 50% of everything that happens. So you can enormously shortcut your efforts. This is going to save you a lot of time. So, what this means is if you have 30 customers, here's how they stack up. If you have 30, if you're like, let's say you have an agency and you got 30 clients, well, 20% of your business will come from 1, 20% will come from 2, 20% will come from 4, 20% will come from 8, and 20% will come from all the rest. This is equality in the real world. Is one of those guys equals 15 of those guys. That's equality. Not the equality they told you about in school. Okay? So, are you going to bust your butt helping 15 people, or are you going to bust your butt helping one person? You get to decide. But guess what? That little guy right over there in the corner, he's like banging on your cage all day long. Help me, help me, help me. Like, you need to fire that guy. And you don't need to be mean about it, but you probably shouldn't even be doing business with him at all. So when I first discovered this, I had been a freelance marketer for a year and a half. And I was like, oh my word. This is already true in my tiny little business already. Like, well, I get 10,000 visitors to my website, and I generated 1,000 leads, and I got 10 people to spend 1,000, and I got one guy that spends 10,000. Like, even in my tiny little business, it was already true. But I had never seen this before. And I was treating everybody equal, and they're not. Not even close. Now, how many of you have seen this shape about 1,000 times in your life? This is a bell curve, right? The bell curve is, you took the history test in school, and, well, the average was 77, and, like, these 3 kids got A's, and these 15 kids got B's, and these 26 kids got C's, and so forth, right? Well, this is how people teach you to think about numbers, is averages. What's the average income? What's the average score on the test? Well, that's not the way to think, okay? Because this focuses you on what's typical. You know what? You're never going to make a profit focusing on the typical person, because the typical person is not profitable. Here's a different way to look at the same bunch of kids that took the same test. If it was a science test, this is their science horsepower. Okay? So the average kid can do this much science. That's how good they are. Oh yeah, they know the periodic table, or they know this or that, and like the regular stuff. But guess what? The number 1 kid can do more actual real science in his life and get more done than the other 99 kids put together. He's going to do more experiments. He's going to read more books. Okay? Now, I happen to have one of these because I brought him with me. Now, I didn't tell him to do this, but Xander wants to be a physicist when he grows up. So, a few weeks ago, he's looking in my library, and he goes, "Hey, what's this?" And I go, "Well, that's a thermodynamics textbook." And he goes, "So what's that?" And I'm like, "Well, this is how heat works and everything. And that's a sophomore level mechanical engineering class." Okay. He's like, "I'm going to read that book." I did not tell him to do this. He put this in his backpack and brought it on our trip. My thermodynamics textbook from college is sitting in our hotel room. And he's reading it, and he brought it to Dubai. Okay, now, I know it's a little early, but I think it would be fair to say that he's up here somewhere compared to all the other kids. If you're going to invest in somebody, who are you going to invest in? Are you going to invest in making 100 kids, average kids, a little bit better? No, that's like boiling the ocean. No, like invest in the one. Because the one will produce more than the 99. This is in the Bible too, by the way. Jesus says he's more excited about the one. He leaves the 99 to go get the one when the lamb gets lost in the field. Okay? There's all kinds of that. All right? This is how everything, so you're hiring computer programmers. There's one computer programmer that can write more better software than the other 99 put together. And it's true. Paul Allen, who founded Microsoft, he said something like, a good taxi driver is 3 times better than a bad taxi driver. He said a good software programmer is 10,000 times better than a bad software programmer. Now, this guy would know. This is really important when you hire talent. Really important. And now, I started out as just like a marketing consultant. And I taught hundreds of thousands of people how to use Google AdWords. And so, I do these trainings and events and coaching and stuff. So, tomorrow and the next day, I'm doing a private training here in Dubai for, it's called a 4-man intensive. I get just 4 people. When I actually work with entrepreneurs and we go through their whole business, and if they want to talk about Google AdWords, sure, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about anything they want. We'll talk about their landing pages or their emails. It's amazing how much people bring up, well, I got this employee, or I don't got this employee, or this person just quit, or I got this talent. Always talking about talent. Well, this is the thing you got to know about talent, is talent is not this. See, when people talk about Six Sigma and stuff like that, they're trying to get you to talk about this, but it's hard to wrap your brain around because they're showing you the wrong picture. This isn't the picture of what it looks like. This is the picture of what it looks like. It's this exponential power of that top 1%. Okay? So what's average is the wrong question. The right question is, who are the superstars and how super are they? That's the question. Am I hiring a superstar or a superstar or a superstar? So when you hire, now there's this interesting thing. Now I don't know what it's like in the Middle East, but I got to think it can't be that different from in the United States. When people hire, here's what they do. They put an ad, people send resumes, people say all kinds of stuff on resumes. Is it actually true? Maybe not. Okay? And then they come over, and then they talk about the job, and they talk, and they like the person that talks to them the best, and then they hire them. Well, let me ask you a question. Why don't they hire that way when they need an actor? If you got a TV thing, do they interview the actors? No. They audition the actors. Okay, read me some Shakespeare. Act me some Shakespeare. How about a band? If you need a bass player, do you hire the guy, like you bring the guy in and just talk about bass? Like, oh, let's go to Starbucks and let's talk about bass for an hour. And then I'll hire the guy that talks to me about bass, like puts the most happy juice squirting in my brain. Is that how you hire a bass player? No. Well, first of all, if he shows up and he doesn't have his bass, then he's disqualified. So, you know, and the ones that brought their bass, like, play me something. Oh, hey, we got a drummer and a guitar player. Play with them, right? It's an audition. When you hire, everything you do should be an audition, not an interview. When we hire people, we don't interview them. We give them instructions and see if they can follow them. And then we give them a job to do and we see how well they can do it. Like, here's a task. They're like, they think like we're gonna like sit around and talk. They don't get to talk to anybody. Like, go to this website, enter the password, do what it tells you to do after you get inside. And we'll like make them do 27 little things and see if they can follow these. That's how we hire people. When we hired an operations manager, here's what we did. The first thing we did, we racked the shotgun. Now, how did we do that? We put an ad, it was a long ad, not a short one, okay? And they had to get through it. And here's what the ad said. Do you like taking disorder and chaos and turning it into order? Do you find satisfaction in cleaning up horrible messes and getting things humming along smoothly? Now, how many job ads by HR people ever said, do you like horrible messes? Right? You get all these corporations pretending they don't have horrible messes. Do corporations have horrible messes? Yes, they do. Absolutely, they do. Do you like seeing a well-oiled machine built and enjoy keeping it running? Are you far more interested in working to prevent future fires than merely putting out present ones? Are you skilled at having random fly at you from random people, catching it, and putting procedures and systems in place so that the stuff takes care of itself next time? Like, does this look like any ad that you ever saw from Microsoft? But is this the reality of what an operations manager has to actually do? Now, we learned this the hard way. You understand all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, well, this is a little slice of my life right here, right? And then, we are an info marketing company of random, brilliant, wild-eyed ideas people. We are virtual headed in Chicago. We have 15 team members located in California, Texas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Illinois, North Carolina, and Florida. We didn't mention the Filipino gal. We each work primarily from home. We're loaded with testosterone. We're ADHD to the hilt. Now, every one of these is racking the shotgun. Every one of these is disqualification. Sales is disqualification. Marketing is disqualification. Who should I not be selling to? That is always the starting point of any sales process. When you see it that way, suddenly you're not bothered that most people didn't search, most people didn't click on your ad, most people didn't come to your landing page, most people didn't sign up, most people didn't show up on the webinar, most people didn't spend any money, most people didn't spend money a second time, most people did not become your lifelong best friend. You're okay with that. Because you never expected to anyway. You knew that it was always going to follow that curve that I kept showing you. And there's going to be that tiny few that really match, and there's going to be the rest that don't, and you're good with it. And when you're good with it, it changes your whole posture as a salesperson, as a marketer, because now you're not trying to convince people anymore. You're just going into the strip club, racking the shotgun. You're not messing around. Like, okay, we're not going to play with those people. Any of these other people, there's the guy from Wichita. He just got his grandmother's inheritance money. I'm going to play with him. He's going to be easy. And like, and we're good. We're not messing around anymore. Okay? And that's how you do it. Sales is a disqualification process. My friend John Mendoza, that I told the story of going to Vegas, John came up with this thing. It's called the 5 power disqualifiers. And they are the 5 things that are always true anytime anybody buys anything. This is useful. This is a principle. It was true 100 years ago. It'll be true in 100 years from now. Even if Google changes their menu, even if Facebook changes their algorithm, even if there's another Google dance, this will always be true. Number 1, do they have the money? If they don't have the money, they're not buying. It took me like 2 years to get this. I would have all these nice conversations with these nice people. They had no money, they had no budget, and I had this, I don't know where I got this idea, but I thought, if they were nice enough, if I liked them enough, if I loved them enough, if we sang Kumbaya together, that the money would show up. No, it's not showing up. How many of you learned this like really the hard, oh, I really love this guy. Yeah, he doesn't have any money. He's not going to buy it. Hello, clue phone. No, my wife figured this out a lot faster than I did, by the way. Okay, do they have the money? That's number 1. 2, do they have a bleeding neck? What do I mean by that? Okay. How many of you have ever gone to the emergency room and found out your definition of emergency and the lady's definition of emergency are 2 completely different things, right? My son broke his arm. He's suffering. Fill out this form. Okay, the waiting room's over there. Go over there. Fill out this form. We'll call you when your name's up, right? And he sits there, and he's in pain, I know. Well, ma'am, you have some Tylenol, right? Give it to him, okay? And he sits there with his broken arm, right? Now, if a guy comes in with a gunshot wound, if he comes in with blood squirting out of his neck, he doesn't have to fill out the form, and they see him right away, right? Okay, bleeding neck. People buy things when they have an urgent problem. People buy things when they have an urgent problem that needs to be solved now. When they have an urgent problem that needs to be solved now, they want you to take their money as fast as possible. This is why 80-20 is why it's way easier to sell a cure than to sell prevention. Because a cure is bleeding neck and prevention is not. Now, those of us who are smart and wise and educated and experienced, we all know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But you know what? People will pay more for an ounce of prevention than they will pay for a pound of cure. So, sorry, got that backwards. They will pay way more. They'll pay pounds and pounds for a pound of cure, and they won't even pay pennies for ounces of prevention. This is the way the world is. You have to live in the is world, not the should be world. Okay? So that's number 2. Number 3, do they have the ability to say yes? There's a lot of versions of this. When I was in Amway, it was, well, you have to get the husband and the wife there because the husband can say no, but he can't say yes. And if the wife isn't there, because she's going to have to say yes, you just totally wasted your time if the wife wasn't there. How many of you have done some version of that? Okay, right? She has to be there. If she's not there, forget it. Just stay home, right? It's like, I thought there was this virtue in being busy. I thought there was this virtue in work ethic. Man, I'm driving, I'm doing meetings, I'm making phone. No, the virtue is in meeting with people who can say yes. The corporate version is There's always, like in any corporate sales, there's always like 19 people that can say no, but they can stop you. They can keep you from getting any further, right? They send one email to their team, they go, don't talk to that guy, that's a waste of time, you're done, right? But there's only one guy that can say yes. So you have to sell the guy who can say yes. Do they have the ability to say yes? That's number 3. Number 4, do they buy into your unique selling proposition? Like, do they like that? Like, yes, I like what you do specifically. If they don't specifically like what you do, they're not buying. Now I told you 4 reasons why most people are not going to buy. And I mean, you can take them to the bank. You can write them in blood. Number 5, does it fit their overall plans? If it doesn't fit their overall plans, they're not buying, right? Like, oh, I have this, hey, I can redo your roof, and your roof's going to last another 20 years. I know, but we're moving to Bali next spring. Okay, they're not going to buy your roof. I don't care how good it has to fit their overall plan. So when we hire people, we tell them all of this stuff, and we're pushing them away, pushing them away, pushing them away, pushing them away. What I'm going to do, I'll spend a lot more money to get this in front of a lot more eyeballs that are mostly going to say no, so I can have a lot fewer people that I ever have to talk to. You realize if 3,000 people see this and I only hear from 3 of them, that's good? Because if they got through all of this stuff and they're going, yes, 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 then that's probably a really good candidate for this job. Okay, now we're going to rack the shotgun again. To apply, go to this URL, blah, 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 enter this password. On the subsequent page, download the specified documents and complete the task described there. Do you notice there was no send us a resume? There was no send us a cover letter. None of that. No. If you got that far, go into the password protected area and then do these little jobs. Now, there's going to be people that go, oh, I can't believe it. They're going to make me do all this work, and they haven't even talked to me to find out how wonderful I am? What is the matter with these people? You don't want him working for you. Prima donna. Okay, I can't tell you the whole story, but I did something kind of like this years ago when I was hiring somebody, and I charged a $25 application fee. Okay? I was going to hire somebody. It was like, to apply, and I was going to my customer list. And they said, we are hiring, but if you want to be considered, you need to do a $25 application fee, and then you got to a little thing like this. Okay, so I get these people, and they're bitching on my blog. They're going, I can't believe the audacity, they're charging $25 for a job interview. They're really mad, right? I get this other guy, and he goes, I'll pay Perry Marshall $25 to tell me why he wouldn't hire me. Now, see, that's a smart guy, right? The other guy's worthless. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. When you rack the shotgun, the truth about people will come out, and most of us don't want to know the truth. But the 80-20 marketer goes, I want to get to the truth as fast as possible, even if it's ugly, because I'll find out sooner or later. I might as well find out now. Gary Halbert used to say, fail fast. If your business doesn't work, do you want to find out do you want to find out in 2017, or do you want to find out in May of 2016? Well, you get to decide. How many of you like spent years in denial about something? Man. All right. Remember I said you can use that 80-20 curve to predict how much money people are going to spend? Well, so here's one of the things you can do. You can say, hey, I got 1,000 people a week going into Starbucks and buying a cup of coffee. I got $2 cups of coffee. I got 1,000 people. How many people are going to spend? So that curve says, well, okay, if I got 1,000 people on the left side of the curve buying a $2 cup of coffee, then that means somebody's going to spend a lot of money. They are? Yes. What are they going to spend money on? Well, they'll only spend money on it if it's available. This is why Starbucks sells a $2,700 espresso machine. 80-20 says for every like maybe 5,000 people that buy a $2 cup of coffee, you're pretty much going to sell one $2,700 espresso machine. And if they don't, there's actually something wrong with your espresso machine, or there's something wrong with the box or the picture or the offer, because it's practically a law of physics that of those 1,000 people that come through, money is burning a hole in a few of their pockets. It's like, for every 100 people that each buy a pair of shoes, there's one person that's going to buy 50 pairs of shoes. Who are they? Okay? So I call this the principle of the $2,700 espresso machine. I was in Seattle a few months ago, and, they got more coffee than anybody, and they got like the little sexy little round jar thing, and they pour the water and it goes in the filter, and there's like the millennial guy with the tattoo and the earring and everything, and he's completely broke. You can tell like they have no money whatsoever, and baristas make like $15 an hour even when they're world class. And you're in this, and the coffee is just to die for, and they're making no money. They don't have a $2,700 espresso machine. Like, this is why, right? Like, Starbucks is all over the place because they have the economics all the way from the $1.70 coffee of the day all the way up to, thousands of dollars for the stainless steel thing. You realize the lady that buys the $2,700 espresso machine is still going to be back tomorrow and buy a latte? So now she's got the espresso machine at home and she's still at Starbucks. It's the unscratchable itch. It's the hyper-responsive customer. Your business, the meat and potatoes of your business is going to be the hyper-responsive customer. Like I was asking James when we started, so like, what's your bread and butter? Because I knew running a podcast isn't his bread and butter. Running a podcast is just racking the shotgun. It's just the very first rack of the shotgun. There's like 3 or 4 more, and then you get a client who's giving you lots of money. And so like, I knew before, like, so what's your bread and butter? And he's like, oh, well, we got this agency, and we got these. I'm like, got it, right? A lot of times, the business you think somebody's in is not the business they're in. The business you think they're in is the rack the shotgun part. The business they're really in is 3, 4, 5, 6 steps later. You don't even have any idea what that might be. If the business you think you're in is the business you're really in, you're probably not in the business you think you're in. Because if you got all these people buying coffee and then you like sell several of these every week, well, once a year somebody ought to spend $100,000. What's that? That might be your real business. Okay, if you do 80-20, it's always going to feel like you're neglecting something. That's because you are. You get that? Oh man, there's all this stuff, there's all these emails I'm not answering. Yeah? Like, get an assistant to answer them. That's 80-20 too, right? Perfectionism is like the great thief. Now, I had this friend named Bill. And Bill came to me, this was 2004, and I was selling the definitive guide to Google AdWords. It was like, how many of you bought that book way back in the day? It was a PDF ebook. And I'm selling these things like hotcakes, and like, this is the business I thought I was in. It's like, man, this is great. And Bill goes, Perry, I have $1 million idea for you. And I go, okay. And he goes, like, seriously. He goes, this is $1 million idea. And Bill is a very serious guy. His name is Bill Harrison, one of the smartest marketers I know. And we're like seminar buddies. And he goes, okay, so I'm going to sit down with you in the bar. I'm going to describe this to you. But if you make $1 million from this, you have to donate $10,000 to my favorite charity, which is this inner city school in Philadelphia. And I go, okay, you're on, Bill. I will do that. He sits me down. He goes, Perry, you need to add coaching to your business. Okay. And he describes this whole thing. He goes, look, you know, I got your book. I think it's great. I know I'm never going to do it all. I need somebody to sit, hold my hand, explain everything to me, break it down, walk me through the steps, help me do these. And so I created this whole thing that we call a bobsled run. And we start with Google AdWords, and we work all the way through the sales funnel, all the 80-20s, all the emails and autoresponders and everything. And he goes, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. You should charge like $2,000, $5,000 for this. Like, okay. And so he gives me a whole business plan. And I know he's right. Getting myself to actually do this was like pulling teeth. Every time I would sit down and start working on this project, I would like, oh, I think I got to get a haircut. Oh, I got to, oh man, I need to check my email. Oh, there was that phone, there was that person I forgot about. And you know, like your demons, like your head trash, like your self-sabotage starts kicking in. Anybody, you guys relate, okay? I discovered something. Your self-sabotage actually tells you what to do. It just says don't do it. It's remarkably reliable. Like, if you've got this really great idea and there's no procrastination demons, it's probably a dumb idea. If you got a great idea and like you're just like having to handcuff yourself to your computer to like get the thing done, it's probably a great idea. Okay? Here's what perfectionism does. Perfectionism sidelines you into this other activity that's worthless, but it feels like work. Okay? So and 80-20 says good enough is good enough. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things that need to be perfect. Okay? Like, if there was one wrong note in Money by Pink Floyd, it wouldn't be a hit song. You know what I'm saying? There are things that have to be perfect, right? But you know, whatever they were doing that year, none of the rest needed to be perfect as long as they got that album out. You know what I'm saying? And you know, they could have sat there and they could have perfected all of these silly little things and not gotten the album done, and nobody would know who they are. You know what I'm saying? My friend Richard Koch. Richard wrote the original 80-20 book, and we've become very good friends. Richard's worth, in 25 years, Richard has gone from selling a company, having $4 million in the bank when, you know, after he paid the taxes 25 years ago, he's worth $350 million now. Now, $4 million to $350 million in 25 years is actually pretty good. Okay? Very sharp guy. Richard says, action drives out thought. Now, you're all a seminar, and y'all need to go home and implement stuff. I get that, and I honor that. And don't hear me wrong. However, if your definition of what you're supposed to do is busy, 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 more and more and more, busy, 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 more and more and more, you're not living 80-20. You need space. I'm pretty religious about taking Sundays off because I need a break. If you're working 7 days a week, you're making a mistake. You need space, you need family, you need relaxation, you need rest, you need music, you need art, you need worship, you need meditation. You need these things. If you are working your fingers to the bone, if you're working seven days a week, you're making a mistake. And it becomes very difficult to see opportunities for what they really are because you think you're just supposed to work. Saying no. 80-20 people say no all the time. No, I can't do this. I just said no this morning, talking to my assistant on Skype, and there's this big giant website, and they have all these people, and could you give us this content? Because I think those, no. All right. Now, 4 kinds of work. There's $10 an hour work, which is like running errands, organizing your office, cold calling, talking to unqualified prospects, doing expense reports, social media the way most people do it, cleaning, $10 an hour work. Okay, then there's $100 an hour work. Solving a problem for a customer, talking to a qualified prospect, writing an email to prospects or customers. Okay, that's good stuff to do. $1,000 an hour work. You notice this is times 10. I mean 10, 100, 1,000, not 10, 20, 30. It's the same as the shoes experiment. Same reason why, okay? Planning and prioritizing your day, writing sales copy, building your sales funnel, negotiating with a qualified prospect, creating pay-per-click campaigns, judging marketing tests. These are $1,000 an hour jobs. Like most people can make a pretty good living if they spend like 1 hour a day doing this kind of stuff, okay? And then there's $10,000 an hour work. There really is. Improving your unique selling proposition, for example. Creating new and better offers, repositioning your message. Now, does it make sense? There's 1,000 times more of this laying around to do than there is this. This is like 1 in 1,000 kind of stuff. And you have to say no, 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 no to the stuff over here, so you can say yes to a few things over here. Now, even a $20 an hour person makes at least $1,000 an hour 1 minute a day. I'll prove it to you. You got a receptionist at a dentist office, and somebody calls, and they want to like get oral surgery or something. And she puts them on hold. I'll be with you in a minute. And 2 minutes later, she comes back and they're gone. Okay, that was 2 minutes. How much does oral surgery cost? Somebody tell me. Give me a number. $10,000. They lost $10,000 in 2 minutes. Now, how many dollars an hour is that? Right? It's like $100,000 an hour. For a receptionist, or more, maybe it's $1 million, I don't know. Somebody figure, right? For a receptionist that just put somebody on hold. Why? I don't know, because she had to spit her gum out, or because her kid texted her, or there was something on Facebook, or because, I don't know, she thought this conversation with a coworker was more important. Like she made no distinction between, shuffling papers and a $100,000 an hour conversation that only lasts for 2 minutes. You realize these moments happen all the time in business, and most people don't see any difference. You realize, like yesterday in Dubai, there was like 30 dentist appointments that were going to cost $10,000 that didn't happen yesterday because somebody put somebody on hold. and they just went away. They just went bye-bye. They just went over to somebody else, even after the person spent all that money on advertising and all that money on marketing and all that money on the equipment. See, tiny hinges swing big doors. And these are when I do private coaching and consultations, these are the things we look for. Like, where are things slipping through the cracks? Most people have enough opportunities, they're just slipping. I got a friend named Len Bertain. He says, the 567 rule says 67% of the value that your customer gets from your product is from 5% of the product. So, a car. 5% of the car actually gets, 5% of the parts in the car are 2/3 of getting you from A to B. Right? This is kind of the lean startup idea. You could start with a very skeletal thing, but if it's the thing that the people really, really want, and they'll write you a check for it, you're good. Okay, here's another one, the 21-20 rule. 20% of your products make 120% of your profit. That's the best 20% of what you sell. But there's a worst 20% of what you sell. And you lose money every time you sell it and you don't know it. And it gets you back down to 100. In other words, 20% of what you sell makes negative 20% of your profit. And if you stopped selling it, you'd make more money and work less hard. Have you ever felt like the harder I work and the more I sell, the more financially behind I seem to get? Anybody ever experienced that? It's true. This is almost always true in any company. Most companies can make more money by eliminating 20% of their product, firing 20% of their customers, getting rid of 20% of their employees, and they don't know it. But it's true. Firing customers. No, you don't have to be mean about it. Don't get me wrong. But 20%, at least 5% of your customers, probably 10, and maybe 20, shouldn't be there. And you would make more money if they were gone. You figure out who they are. Do some real actual number crunching and figure out, what do we get for what we have to put into this relationship? And you say, we made some significant changes in our business, and we're changing some product lines, we're changing our direction, and we just have to let some customers go. And it's been great working with you, and I really appreciate your business, but as of June 30, we're not going to be handling your account anymore. And I suggest this company or this company or this company. I can make an introduction if you want. We can transfer, if you are a tax preparer or an SEO person or a pay-per-click person, there's somebody you shouldn't have as a client. So give them to somebody else. I really want to challenge you. That there's all kinds of invisible levers inside your business. They're everywhere. And there's just a few of them. If you fix a few things in your business, 3, 4, 5 things, the whole thing will be much better. If you eliminate 3, 4, 5 things, maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 products, maybe it's 3, 4 or 5 customers, maybe it's just a small percentage of what you do, the defects will go away. The unhappy customers will go away. Or maybe there's a few employees or contractors or vendors, and you get rid of them and your life goes better. It's elimination. What's the 1, 2, or 3 things that you can eliminate and your life gets a whole lot better? So, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening so attentively. You guys have been a great audience. It's a delight to be here. I'll be here. I'd love to, take a picture, say hello, you know, answer a question, whatever. Again, you've been great.